Neon sign of the Rusty Spoon Diner flickered weakly against the stormy night, its dim glow barely cutting through the rain. Inside, the air smelled of grease and old coffee, the kind of place where tired souls came to escape the world, if only for a meal. Lily wiped down the counter for the third time that hour, her fingers tracing the same cracks in the laminate. She didn't notice the family at first, not until the little boy's voice cut through the quiet. "Can I really get pancakes, Dad?" His hopeful whisper hung in the air, louder than the clatter of dishes. Lily glanced over. The father, Mark, nodded stiffly, his knuckles white around the menu. His wife, Emma, kept her eyes down, her fingers trembling as she tucked a frayed dollar bill back into her purse. Something about them made Lily's chest tight. It wasn't just the worn-out shoes or the way Jake's jacket sleeves rode up his wrists. It was the silence, the kind that came before a storm. Behind the counter, the register chimed as another order went through. Lily forced a smile, sliding water glasses toward the family. "Long night?" she asked, but Mark's eyes darted away. Emma's breath hitched just once before she squeezed Jake's hand. That's when Lily saw it, the way the boy's smile didn't reach his eyes, the way his parents' whispers were less like conversation and more like prayers. Outside, thunder rolled. Somewhere beyond the parking lot, a siren wailed. None of them knew it yet, but in exactly 1 hour, those flashing lights would be for them. And by then, it would be too late to take back what Lily was about to do. Diner's overhead lights buzzed like distant hornets, casting long shadows over the Carter family's booth. Jake stabbed his fork into a syrupy pancake, his grin faltering when his father's phone clattered onto the table. I'll just step outside," Mark muttered, thumb hovering over his cracked screen. Lily pretended not to notice the way his shoulders hunched like a man bracing for a blow. Emma's fingers crept toward the check, her breath catching at the total, $32. Less than Lily made in 2 hours, more than the Carters clearly had. Behind the coffee machine, Lily watched Mark pace by the rain-streaked window, his mouth moving in a silent argument with whoever was on the line. Emma's lips moved too, shaping words too soft to hear. Not again, not now, as she dug through her purse. A tube of lipstick, a grocery list, a single folded photograph of Jake in a school play. No wallet. Jake's voice piped up. "Dad said we're getting ice cream after." Emma's smile shattered before it fully formed. The bell above the door jingled as Mark returned, his face gray. "Card." "Not working," he lied too loudly. The couple at the next booth glanced over. Emma's hand flew to Jake's shoulder, squeezing like she could shield him from the shame curdling the air. Lily knew that look. She'd worn it herself a lifetime ago, standing in a soup kitchen line while her mother whispered, "Look down, baby, don't let them see." Jake's fork clinked against his empty plate. "Are we in trouble?" he asked, and the diner seemed to hold its breath. Mark opened his mouth, but no sound came out. That's when Lily moved, not toward them, toward the register. Her fingers punched in the employee discount code she wasn't supposed to use. The machine beeped. $32 vanished from her tips envelope. Outside, the rain slowed to a drizzle. Somewhere beyond the highway, a police scanner crackled to life. Lily's fingers trembled as she tucked the receipt into her apron pocket, the one with "paid in full" stamped across the top in smudged ink. She could still smell the cigarette smoke clinging to Mark's jacket when he'd leaned in close, his voice cracking like thin ice. "Why would you? We can't possibly." Behind him, Emma had pressed both hands over her mouth, shoulders shaking. Not crying, not yet. The kind of stillness that comes right before the dam breaks. The coffee machine hissed, snapping Lily back. She grabbed a napkin and scribbled fast before courage failed her. "Today on me. Lily." The pen bled through the cheap paper, the ink spreading like a bruise. For a heartbeat, she hesitated. Rent was due Friday. The transmission in her '98 Corolla growled like a dying animal. But then she saw Jake, really saw him, the way his two big sneakers swung under the booth, the syrup smeared on his chin. He was humming some cartoon-themed song. Completely unaware, his childhood was about to fracture. She slid the napkin across the table just as Mark pulled out his phone again. "Sir, if you just let me explain." His whisper was razor-wire tight. Emma's head snapped up at Lily's approach. The napkin fluttered between them. Recognition flashed in Emma's eyes, not relief, not yet. Fear. The kind that knows kindness always comes with strings. "No," Mark breathed, shoving the napkin back. "We don't take charity." The word landed like a slap. Lily's throat burned. She remembered the winter her mother sold her wedding ring for gas money, how the pawnshop man had sighed and added an extra 20. "It's not charity," she said, pressing the napkin into Jake's sticky hands instead. "It's pancakes." Jake giggled, just a hiccup of sound, but it unspooled the tension like a cut ribbon. Emma's fingers brushed Lily's wrist, dry, cracked skin against her own. No words, none needed. Mark's phone clattered onto the table, his call disconnected. The silence stretched, fragile as the diner's flickering fluorescence. Then so quiet Lily almost missed it. "Thank you," not to her, to the ceiling. To whatever God had sent this broke waitress with her frayed sneakers and reckless heart. Outside, the rain stopped. The parking lot asphalt shimmered under the streetlight. Lily watched the Carters leave, Jake skipping ahead, Mark's arm slung tight around Emma's waist. The bell above the door chimed. Somewhere in the kitchen, the radio crackled with static, a dispatcher's voice slicing through. "All units be advised, suspect last seen near Highway 9. Lily tuned it out. She'd done a good thing, that had to count for something. Behind her, the register drawer slammed shut. The diner exhaled. No one noticed the black sedan crawling past the parking lot, its headlights off. Diner's clock ticked past midnight when Lily finally untied her apron, the fabric stiff with old grease and coffee stains. Her shift had ended an hour ago, but she'd stayed to wipe down tables, refill salt shakers, anything to avoid going home to her empty studio apartment. The night manager, Sal, tossed her a tired smile as she pushed through the back door. "Try not to get murdered," he joked, flipping the lock behind her. The alley smelled of rotting garbage and wet asphalt, the moon swallowed by thick clouds. Lily fumbled for her keys when the first flash of red cut through the darkness. Then blue. Then a chorus of sirens, not distant this time, but shrieking into the diner's parking lot. Tires screeched. Car doors slammed. Lily froze as 3 squad cars boxed in a familiar beat-up sedan, the Carter's car. Mark was halfway out of the driver's seat when an officer yanked him onto the pavement, knee digging into his back. "Mark Carter, you're under arrest for embezzlement and flight to avoid prosecution." Emma's scream tore through the night. She lunged for Jake, but a second officer caught her arm. "Ma'am, step back." The boy stood frozen, pancake syrup still crusted on his shirt, his backpack dangling from one small hand. Lily's body moved before her brain caught up. She sprinted across the lot, her sneakers slipping on rain-slick concrete. "Stop, you've got the wrong." A flashlight beam blinded her. "This a friend of yours, Carter?" The officer's voice was all smirk. Mark's face pressed against the hood of the squad car, his breath fogging the metal. "Never seen her before," he gasped. A lie, a bad one. Lily's pulse roared in her ears. The pieces clicked, Mark's frantic phone calls, the way Emma jumped at every siren, not just broke. Running. The officer rattled off charges. $500,000 missing from Midland's bank. Suspect fled custody 2 weeks ago. Emma sobbed into her hands. Jake started crying, quiet hiccuping sounds that made Lily's stomach twist. Then Mark did something unexpected. He lifted his head, blood trickling from his split lip, and locked eyes with Lily. "Tell him," he choked out. "Tell Jake I didn't take it." Detective emerged from the shadows, flipping through a file. "Funny thing," he mused. "Bank manager swore you were the only one with access to those accounts." Mark's laugh was raw. "Yeah, funny." Lily's fingers found Jake's shoulder. The boy clutched her wrist like a lifeline, his tears hot against her skin. The officer snapped cuffs on Mark. "You have the right to remain silent." Over the radio, static crackled. Then a dispatcher's voice. "Detective, we've got a problem. Midland's just called. Their CFO confessed. Says Carter was set up." The parking lot went very still. Even the crickets stopped singing. The detective's pen hovered over his notepad. Mark sagged against the car, his breath coming in ragged gulps. Emma whispered one word over and over like a prayer. "Please, please, please." Lily tightened her grip on Jake. The first raindrop fell, then the sky opened up. Rain sheeted down in icy curtains, plastering Lily's hair to her face as she stepped between Mark and the officers. The detective's flashlight beam trembled across the wet pavement, catching the panic in Emma's wide eyes, the way Jake's tiny fists knotted in Lily's soaked apron. "You heard the radio?" Lily shouted over the storm. "He's innocent." Lead officer Brady, his name tag read, didn't lower his cuffs. "Step aside, sweetheart, this ain't your business." His partner reached for Jake, making the boy whimper and bury his face in Lily's side. Something primal uncoiled in Lily's chest. She remembered being 8, pressed against her mother's legs as the landlord screamed at them to get out. The helplessness, the shame. Mark strained against the cop, holding him down, rainwater mixing with blood on his cheek. "For God's sake, at least let my wife take Jake." "Shut it, Carter." Brady twisted Mark's arm higher. Emma lunged forward, only to be blocked by another officer. Her scream tore through the parking lot, raw as open wounds. That's when Lily did the stupidest thing of her life. He snatched the detective's folder, rainwater smearing the ink as she frantically scanned pages. "Look at the dates." Her finger stabbed at a transaction record. May 12th, Mark was in the hospital when that transfer happened. She spun to face the detective, shoving a soaked photograph into his hands, Jake in a hospital gown, Mark slumped asleep in a chair beside him. "His son had appendicitis. I served them pancakes when they got discharged. Check the security tapes." For 3 heartbeats, no one moved. Then the detective's radio crackled again. "Confirmed, CFO's confession checks out. Carter's login was used remotely from an IP in Belize." Brady didn't loosen his grip. "Bullshit. Rich boys always have excuses." "Enough." The detective's voice cut like steel. He studied Mark's face, the exhaustion, the fear, the relief so profound it looked like pain. Then he nodded at the officer holding Emma. "Let her go." The moment Emma's arms wrapped around Jake, Mark broke. Great, shuddering sobs racked his body as the cuffs came off. Brady backed away, muttering about technicalities, but no one was listening anymore. Lily swayed on her feet, adrenaline leaching away. The detective caught her elbow. "You've got guts, kid," he muttered, pressing a card into her palm. "If the bank gives them trouble about compensation, call me." Mark reached for Lily then, his hands trembling, not to shake hers, to embrace her. The hug crushed the breath from her lungs, desperate, grateful, human. Over his shoulder, Lily saw Jake peeking out from Emma's arms. The boy's lips moved silently, shaping 2 words. Thank you. Sirens wailed in the distance, not for them now, but for some other tragedy unfolding in the night. The storm eased to a drizzle as the squad cars pulled away, taillights reflecting in the puddles. Mark kept one arm around Emma, the other ruffling Jake's hair. "Let's go home," he whispered. But Lily knew they'd left home behind weeks ago. What came next would be something new, something fragile, something earned. Her apron pocket buzzed. Sal's text blinked on her cracked screen. "You coming back for your tips or what?" Lily laughed, a wet, wild sound, and turned toward the diner. The neon Rusty Spoon sign sputtered back to life overhead, painting the rain in streaks of pink and gold. Somewhere beyond the highway, dawn pressed against the edges of the night. The world kept turning, but not quite the same as before. The morning sun bled through the diner's grease-streaked windows as Lily refilled the salt shakers for the third time that hour. A week had passed since the storm, but the air still hummed with the electricity of what happened. Regulars leaned across the counter now, whispering behind their coffee cups. "That's her, the one who stood up to the cops," while strangers left 20s under their plates like sacred offerings. At booth 3, a familiar figure hunched over the newspaper. Mark's knuckles were still scabbed from that night, but his shoulders no longer carried the weight of a fugitive. The headline beside his coffee read, "Midlands Bank Scandal, CFO extradited from Belize." When Lily slid a fresh blueberry stack toward him, he didn't flinch at the sound of the bell over the door. Progress. Emma entered with Jake trailing behind, the boy's sneakers squeaking on the freshly mopped tiles. He carried something, a shoebox wrapped in dinosaur stickers. "For you," he mumbled, shoving it at Lily before bolting to his parents' booth. Inside lay a tangle of crayon drawings, a stick-figure waitress standing between a policeman and a crying family, the diner's neon sign glowing like a halo above them. "Wouldn't sleep until we got you this," Emma said, her fingers tracing the edge of the box. The shadows under her eyes had lightened, though Lily noticed how she still jumped at sudden noises. Mark reached for his wife's hand, their wedding bands glinting in the sunlight. Real ones now, the bank had returned everything they'd pawned, plus interest. Sal banged through the kitchen doors, tossing Lily a new apron, manager stitched in crimson thread over the pocket. "Don't get cocky," he grunted, though the corners of his mustache twitched upward. The raise had been his idea, along with the new security cameras pointed at the parking lot. Outside, a black sedan rolled to a stop. The detective from that night stepped out, his tie loosened, carrying 2 paper bags from the bakery down the street. He nodded at Mark through the window before sliding onto a stool. "Heard Carter's suing the department," he said as Lily poured his coffee. "Good." By noon, the diner buzzed with the usual lunch crowd, but something had shifted. The couple who always stiffed on tips left a 50. The truckers in back booth stopped cursing when Jake walked by. Even Brady, the cop who'd pressed Mark into the pavement, slunk in for a slice of pie, his badge conspicuously absent from his belt. Lily was wiping down the counter when cold metal brushed her wrist. Mark held out a key, small, brass, the kind that opened safety deposit boxes. "The bank gave us back our old house," he said. "Basement apartment's empty. Rent's whatever you were paying before, minus what we owe you." Emma squeezed Lily's shoulder as Jake tugged at her sleeve. "There's a swing in the backyard," he announced, syrup smeared across his triumphant grin. "And no bugs in the fridge like at your place." The bell jingled as new customers entered, bringing with them the scent of summer asphalt and possibility. Lily tucked the key into her manager's apron, right next to the detective's card and Jake's drawings. Somewhere beyond the highway, her old studio apartment waited, the leaky faucet, the moldy shower curtain, the silence. She reached for a fresh pot of coffee. The diner hummed around her, alive with the clatter of plates and the murmur of stories being told. Outside, the world kept turning. But not quite the same as before. 5 years later, the Rusty Spoon got a new neon sign, one that didn't flicker, though regulars still swore they saw the old one's ghost in the right light. Lily wiped down the same counter, now with a silver nameplate reading owner beneath her fingers. The bell jingled, and she didn't need to look up to recognize the cadence of those boots. "Coffee, Officer Carter?" she called, sliding a mug toward the tall young man in uniform. Jake's badge caught the morning sun as he hooked his hat on the peg by the register, the same peg Mark had used back when he came in for blueberry pancakes every Sunday. "You're late," Lily teased. Jake shrugged, nodding toward the TV above the bar where news footage played. A bank robbery foiled by a rookie cop who'd talked the gunman down over shared stories of the Rusty Spoon's famous pie. In the corner booth, Mark and Emma clinked glasses of orange juice, their anniversary tradition. The diner walls around them were papered with photos. Jake's police academy graduation, Lily cutting the ribbon on her second location, the detective who'd believed them that rainy night bouncing his granddaughter on his knee at last year's Christmas party. Lily flipped the open sign just as a young woman hesitated outside, her eyes darting between the diner and a help-wanted ad. Lily pushed the door wide, letting in the smell of fresh-cut grass and new beginnings. "We start at double minimum wage," she said, just like Sal had told her a lifetime ago. The griddle sizzled, coffee dripped. Somewhere beyond the highway, another storm gathered, another family struggled, another story waited to unfold. But here, under the steady glow of the new sign, the world kept turning. Like this story? Jake's voice broke in over the credits rolling on the TV. Hit subscribe. You never know whose life might change at the next booth over. The camera lingered on the peg by the door, one hook now holding a patrolman's hat, the other a waitress's apron, before fading to black.